Omega Race is a popular vector graphics shoot-'em-up released into US arcades by Midway in 1981. It was actually the only vector graphics game Midway ever produced. Now, as was the trend in the early 80s, translations of arcade hits for home consoles was a proven profit maker. So CBS Electronics swooped in and secured the rights to Omega Race. And it's that port for the Atari 2600 I'll be looking at next.
This video brought to you in part by Tommy in the Order of Cosmic Champions. This exciting and heartwarming coming-of-age Gen X novel is available now. Check the link for more info.
Hey there, welcome back to GenXGrownUp. I'm John and I am a Gen X grown-up. Thank you for taking the time to click on this video. In 1983, CBS Electronics tapped Alex Nevelson to develop the port of Omega Race for the Atari video computer system. And what Nevelson accomplished is a pretty faithful interpretation of the arcade game, but this particular version of Omega Race is better known for the packed-in peripheral, the booster grip. You see, the arcade controls included a spinner for rotating your spaceship, but then had two action buttons, one for thrust and another to fire. Now, rotating left and right with a joystick is fine, but CBS chose to include a joystick add-on called the Booster Grip, which adds a flight yoke grip and two fire buttons. The manual shows how to install and connect it, and once you do, your 2600 now has two extra action buttons, one for thrust and one for fire. Meanwhile, the original button on the base of your joystick can also be used to thrust. Now, as creative as this was, these days, it makes playing Omega Race on an original console impossible with a standard controller. Now, fortunately, we live in the future and can remap those booster grip controls to any button we choose via emulation, which is how we're going to play Omega Race right now. So, upon firing up Omega Race, you see the copyright here, 1981 and 83. 81's the arcade, 83 is this port, and it lands you on the main play screen. The object of Omega Race, there's a little backstory. The Omegans, these are these enemies, have used this arena to train their warriors over the millennia. And they've become so proficient at fighting that any other enemies that might approach them are now terrified because they're so proficient. So they now travel the galaxy looking for competent, intelligent life who can give them a challenge, right? So basically they want to put you in this gauntlet and run you through the Omega Race, which is their training arena for combat. There's a real dig in the game. It says, we're looking for intelligent life that's worthy. Failing that, we found you. It's what it says in the manual. It's, okay, does it motivate me, I guess? Now, something that they did differently here with this vector game, if you think of like what Atari did with asteroids and they kind of filled in things and made them solid, a solid asteroid and a solid ship, Omega Race kind of tries to preserve the aesthetic of the vector. So everything is just unfilled objects and straight lines. And so what you're seeing there is more similar to what you would have seen in the arcade. It's a choice, and I think it works pretty well here. Of course, there are limitations. You don't get the impact kind of explosions on the walls when you hit it. And when you bounce off the walls in the arcade, there's like a kind of a rubbery look of the walls. You don't have that. But you certainly have the basic outline. And on the 2600, a pretty decent conversion, I think. Okay, let me just start right quick so that we can... So you can see what's going on. There's a guy moving and he's shooting at me. I'll pause it right there. So on the screen, we'll do a quick tour of the screen. At the top, of course, is my score. It's 0 right now. I've not done anything. And then at the bottom left is the rack number. Now, I like that they called it rack here. Early arcade games used to call them racks. And I think it's a carryover from billiards when you would get all the balls in and then re-rack them. You finish a game of Space Invaders and there's a second rack. In fact, Buckner Garcia used the term rack in the Defenders song, I think. Got to get to the second rack or whatever. It just means wave or level, so the rack number is there. The lower right is the number of lives that you have. So you have 2 lives right now in reserve, and 1 is your ship that's currently on screen. So you start with 3 lives. Now you can earn extra lives every 30,000, 80,000, and 150,000 points. Now, the last 2 are scores I've never seen, but apparently you get extra lives there. Though you can only have 4 in reserve. So if you're really good and you get to 150 and never died, you'll actually be robbed of a life because you'll have gained 3 extra lives and only have 4 in reserve. But so let's talk about enemies. So the enemies that are moving around, you see these circles, well, they're ovals, I guess, but the drones at the bottom that aren't moving, the unfilled in ovals, those just sit there and you can just shoot them. Now, once you get to the second level, past this kind of first training level, they start to kind of orbit around the arena, but right now they're static. The ship that's moving, that's filled in, is shooting at me. That's the command ship. Now, once you destroy the command ship, one of the drones will turn into a command ship and come after you. And then there's one more type of enemy that you'll see in a minute. They're called death ships, is what they're called. The manual calls them ninjas of space. Now, something will turn into one of those, fly around, and try to, they'll drop little mines, by photon mines, that you don't have to destroy, but you do need to avoid and dodge. So let me unpause here. I'll play a little bit so you can see more. So you can see those other enemy types. Now, you've seen the scoring. A good strategy for scoring really is to not shoot all of the drones because they're not worth as many points. You ought to take out, ideally, the command ship, and then a new drone will turn into a command ship and you get more points. All right, there's the death ship. You can see he's moving around quickly. He's firing on me. The command ship got me, and he's dropping little drones. You'll see him again in a second. Get that guy. There we go. And so as soon as I shot him, you see a drone turned into a new command ship. The little death ships are kind of a timer, I guess. Another limitation here is only 2 bullets on the screen at any given time. In the original Omega Race, you could kind of just strafe the screen. Now here you kind of have to dodge, pick your shots carefully, like I did there. And you see the photon mines don't have to be destroyed. Little song plays. Gonna pause. Now I'm on rack 2. So it's a very straightforward arcade game. Your objective each level is to clear the screen of all enemies. The photon mines are optional. You can destroy them if you want. Every 4 waves, if you can make it 4 waves, you'll get an additional bonus. But as you can see here on this little excerpt from the manual, the scoring, basically it's risk-reward. The more dangerous the enemy, the higher the score. So do you want to survive longer and get more points that way? Or do you want to go after the high-value targets and risk losing a life? I guess it's just how good you are. Now, as far as options, there aren't many game options. Really, you can select from Game 1 or Game 2, and that's just a 2-player game. So Game 2 there, Game 1 here, 1 or 2-player game. The only real difference is they flip-flop the rack and score to the top and bottom. They rotate that, so Player 2's rack is up at the top and score is at the bottom, and they modify that. As far as difficulty switches, the difficulty switches have no impact on the gameplay, but they do on the control. So what they have done is, if you bought Omega Race and just have one of those booster grips, and because you can't play the game with just a regular joystick, you put the right difficulty, I forget if it's A or B, but you put it in one direction, and player 1 is stick 1 and player 2 is stick 2. That requires 2 of the booster grips. Alternately, what they've done is you put it in the other position, and both players basically swap off the stick 1 because, you know, a kid would just have 1 of those booster grips. That's really the difference. With that, I'm going to do a points run and see how well I can do. I'm not great at this. Even the arcade game, I wasn't great. Only making a couple of levels. I can get maybe 30, 40,000 on a good day. But before I do, especially with the holidays coming up, I want to remind you of our store at GenXGrownUp.com/merch, where you can get original designs based on games and movies and TV and pop culture, on shirts and hats and mugs and stickers, and get it delivered right to you. It's great for gift giving. It's great for giving something to yourself. And every purchase not only gets that gift for you, but supports independent content creation like you see here on GenXGrownUp. So please give it a thought. At least stop by and see what we have before you go Christmas shopping. You might find what you need over there at our store. All right, so let's start this thing up. Make sure I'm on game number 1. And let's do a points run and see how I can do. Good luck to me. Got him. Now, ideally, you kind of want to line yourself up with the enemies and then fire those 2 bullets you have, but sometimes that's more trouble than it's worth because lining yourself up with them also makes it easier for them to shoot you, you know? Also, you kind of want to stay moving because the math is pretty good here. It's going to do a good job of kind of trying to target you. Got it. So you got to be careful. Especially that death ship, he shoots at you and drops mines, so you know, a real problem. Come on. Got him. All right, that's rack 1. Okay, round 2. Now, you know, I really don't understand why the booster grip. I mean, pushing forward for thrust is perfectly acceptable. It's a great method of control. We all learned it in Asteroids. It's almost more like they just wanted to have a peripheral to make it interesting. You'll also note enemies, there can only be one enemy bullet on the screen at a time, which is really important to pay attention to when things get hairy. Because if there's a bullet already on the screen, you know you can kind of approach the other bad guy. Let's get me. There's a mine over here that I'm not following. He's coming around. Let's keep moving. I just kind of work the circuit. You know, it's called a race. Ooh, ouch. There's a one man down. It's called an Omega race because you're kind of moving around. And I think that's the biggest tip that I would say for this game, which is keep moving and work your way around. Follow the enemies that are working their way around the screen because their path. All right, look, it resets the whole level when you lose a man, which is unfortunate because I was down to just a couple of enemies. But I guess, you know, at least I have a chance to get more points that way. There's more enemies for me to kill, right? Oh, there's the first extra man, also known as the last extra man John will ever get. Oh, did he just disappear? Like he warped up here, didn't he? Whoa! Oh, just missed him. Oh, get him. I was close. Whoa, got him, the last second. That was a lucky shot. Rack 3? Could I possibly make it to Rack 4? Now look how much faster they're moving. Plus you can have multiple command ships now, which is bad news. You really have to time out your 2 bullets. Because it's really easy. Oh, how did he not get me? Oh, 43,000? Oh man, this is my last guy. It gets really hairy. And of course it's that drifty space control. There's one down. Try to keep away from who can shoot me. The 2 command ships up here. There's another one down. Whoa! Was that it? That was it. Around 50,000 even. I'll take that. It can be a pretty hectic game. And I've been practicing at it for a while. I don't think I've made it past Rack 4, which is where you start getting the bonuses. So every 4, like after 4, you get a big bonus, and after 8, you get a big bonus. Yeah, so this is Omega Race from CBS Electronics for the Atari 2600. This was by request, so Jeremiah, this one was for you.
Another notable feature of this version of Omega Race is that it's one of only a few games that includes an extra 250 bytes, not kilobytes, bytes, of addressable memory right on the cartridge. CBS Electronics marketed this as RAM Plus and printed a badge advertising the feature right on the box. Now, Activision did something similar with Pitfall 2, but where you can see and hear the benefit there, that extra RAM for Omega Race, while surely helpful to the developer, I don't really see how that memory helped to improve this release. It feels more like a marketing stunt than a game changer. I cover a different old retro game each week here on Friday Plays, so if I haven't yet looked at your favorite, let me know down in the comments and I'll add it to my list. Meanwhile, links here and here to some previous entries in the series. I certainly hope you found something to enjoy in this video, and I can't wait to talk to you again next time. Bye-bye.